This program is a paid commercial announcement and in no way represents the views of WPHT or its management.
Now, on Talk Radio 1210, WPHT, WPHT, HD, WOGL, HD3, Philadelphia. Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
If we don't move in our own direction, we're going to become extinct. In fact, in some cases, we're close to being extinct right now.
Presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries, and powered by the law offices of Pond, Lehocky, Stern, Giordano. Talk, listen, and speak to the region's most influential leaders. It's Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. A good Saturday evening to all of our listeners, and welcome into what will be a very, very special program tonight here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT as we come to you live from the Sonesta. It is our opening roundtable conversation. But before we do that, we begin our live broadcast tonight, and we send thoughts and prayers to the family of Local 405 member and Local 98 member, Attorney Pat B. and Cooley, whose 16-year-old grandson, Salvatore DeNobili, a St. Joe's Prep student, member of the hockey team, and his friend, Kalir Miller from Mastery Charter, both shot and killed on Tuesday evening in South Philadelphia. We begin our show again, Jay Doc, with a heavy heart, and I just want to read a short note that was put out by John Doherty from Local 98. It is with a very heavy heart to inform all of the tragic death of Pat B. and Coley's grandson, Sal DeNobili. Pat B. and Coley is IBEW Local 98's in-house attorney, who many of you know. Sal was murdered on Tuesday night in South Philadelphia. Sal was 16 years old. He attended St. Joe's Prep. He was a junior at the Prep, and he was also a member of the hockey team. A very kind, respectful, and loyal son, grandson, and friend. A tough way to start the show, Jay Doc. Absolutely. Necessary, of course, to recognize and begin this show with a heavy heart.
Absolutely. Pat Bianco is one of the great people in labor. Certainly a great friend of ours, and our hearts, our prayers, our thoughts, everything go out to Pat and his family. Just unthinkable. Tough
week in Philadelphia, tough week for the St. Joe's Prep community, and also a tough week for everyone involved in that tragedy, again, that occurring on Tuesday night. We welcome everyone in to Talk Radio 1210, WPHT. We've all gathered tonight for Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 for our Labor Leader Roundtable conversation tonight, presented by Pond Lehocky, and Sam Pond is with me up here along with Jay Doc. Sam, welcome into the show this evening. Tough way to start the broadcast, but I welcome you and I thank you for being
thanks,
here.
Joe, and Pat B. and Cooley, and my condolences and sympathies and thoughts and prayers are with the B. and Cooley family, and there's no greater friend to labor that's worked tirelessly throughout his career, literally taking calls at midnight, helping union members with their legal needs. Pat B. and Cooley, in horrible loss in Tanky, is the oldest grandson of that family, in the DeNobili family. Just terrific, and we love you, Pat, and we love the B. and Cooley family.
Well said, Sam.
Good stuff, well said by Sam Pond, our founder and managing partner of Pond Lehocky. Let me introduce our lineup of labor leaders who are here tonight for what should be a great show, a first of its kind. J-Doc, you know what, J-Doc, I'll let you do the honor of introducing all of the labor leaders who are here. We're also joined by Pennsylvania State Representative. We'll introduce Morgan in just a moment, but I'll give you the honor and give you the ability to start.
This is a groundbreaking opportunity for us to engage with our labor leadership at what we're calling a labor leaders roundtable, and it also engages our political leaders and our city officials. And Sam Pond, actually, it was his concept, and we thought it was one of the great ideas, and so really excited about having everybody here. I'm happy to have Jim Gardler, President, CWA 13,000, Fred Wright, President, AFSCME DC 47, Kevin Boyle, Business Manager, Ironworkers Local 401, Richie Lazer, Deputy Mayor for Labor, City of Philadelphia, and of course Morgan Cephas, PA State Rep, the 192nd Legislative District, and of course co-hosting the show with you and I tonight is Sam Pond, founding founder and managing partner at Palmer Hockey. So I want to welcome everybody. I want to thank you for being here. Certainly a groundbreaking opportunity, and we're gonna hear it from all sides. We have public unions, private unions, and we're going to do this every month. So I want to thank everybody for being here and welcome you all to the show.
All right, good stuff. Before we get started, J-Doc, I'll let you start with the topic, but before we do that, I do want to send a big shout-out to the Sonesta Hotel for hosting us here tonight, 1800 Market Street in Center City, Philadelphia, a union hotel, a union supporter of Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
So we got a lot going on in the city of Philadelphia. It's we've talked about it many times, but I want to start off a little bit about some of the things going on just this week. So there's been, last week, as we Pat Eidingen talked about a situation with Senator Tony Williams aligning himself with State Senator Scott Wagner in regards to the soda tax. He took the fight to Harrisburg, and he aligned himself with somebody who was couldn't be more against our union community here. And did not, look at the soda tax, in a well-rounded fashion. I want to kind of, Richie, lay in a little bit on how important the soda tax is to us and what the benefits are, to our children.
Yeah, definitely. I remember being on the first show, and you guys had asked me. It was right after we had passed the soda tax. It was a signature piece for the mayor. I mean, it really focuses on three things. It really is all on our youth, but it's about rebuild, about redoing our rec centers and libraries and parks, which are a lot of them need overhaul. A lot of them haven't been fixed for over 10, 15, 20 years. Pre-K for our kids, to give them a great start, a foundation to start their learning career, and community schools to infuse all type of social services inside of our schools. I mean, our school, what we want to do is turn these schools in our neighborhoods as community centers and make adults able to go there for education, for job training, and also make it an all-day open community center for all our kids. So it's important for us to focus on that, and it's a big piece of the mayor's term, big piece of our administration.
What's the point of the story, J-Doc?
Tony Williams is against the soda tax and couldn't get any support here in the city, so he went and aligned himself with somebody who's been so anti-union that it's almost unprecedented. Plus, Wagner's going to be running as a Republican for governor, likely against Governor Wolf. So, I mean, it's like almost appalling that he would do something like that. Also, as part of that discussion, we talked about the diversity issue. Kevin Boyle with the Ironworkers. We talked about, a big part of the initiative is a diversity issue. And there's no denying, obviously, in the building trades, it's a commitment that we're making. It's been an issue. How important is that issue? And what is the commitment to, accomplishing our goals?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me here because I'm fairly new to all this. So what it is a – am I talking too loud, Jeff? I really don't need a microphone.
He's got the compressor.
We're good. Kev, you keep going.
So what it is it was an agreement between the city, the building trades, the colleges with Drexel and University of Penn, Madison to help high school kids come in right out of high school to start looking into the trades, which is a good thing. It's a good business thing, but it's good for the neighborhoods, to me, because they need more help than anything. I should know my wife's a school teacher for 33 years.
And the interesting thing, and so what was it? Scott Wagner said there was, and listen, and we talked about it. And Morgan, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we recognize the diversity issue in labor, but there's also a diversity in the tech industry. There's also a diversity issue in the automotive industry. And, I come from a line of politics where it's always easy to point out the problem, but it's always difficult to find a solution. And I feel like, people on the other side of the aisle don't know how to lead when they need to. I mean, Senator Scott Wagner has been there for some time now, and if we are still having the conversation he's kind of also a part of the problem. And, to the labor unions, to their credit, have been, working hard to address that. And I think we have a lot of great projects, a lot of great programs to be able to build that pipeline. I mean, the diversity and workforce development pipeline issue even came up with Amazon, with the tech industry. So it's not just, labor, but it's across the board. And we need to do a better job. And, I do applaud Mayor Kinney. I was going to call him Councilman Kinney. But I do applaud Mayor Kinney for really stepping up to the plate and coming up with a policy that will impact Philadelphia, yes, but that's, ultimately because Harrisburg is not doing its job, which has Senator Wagner been a part of that, not doing his job in providing the adequate funding for education that we need. And it requires for counties to get creative, and that's what our mayor did.
Just for the benefit of our listening audience, Morgan is Pennsylvania State Representative of the 192nd Legislative District, State Rep Morgan Cephas. Thank you very much for weighing in. Fred Wright, let me come to you, President of AFSCME DC 47. Let me come to you and ask you to weigh in on that very conversation.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here with my other participants from the panel. My union, AFSCME DC 47, supported the soda tax, and we support it for several reasons. Number one, we support it because our members work in the libraries, our members work in the rec centers, man the rec centers, and they need a safe and healthy facility to work in. Plus, we see it as a quality of life issue. When you look around the neighborhood of Philadelphia, just last week they had to close a rec center, I believe, because it was in poor condition. So when you talk about the quality of life in these neighborhoods with kids, the only outlet to go to a rec center, go to the library, they need to be a safe, healthy, and adequate facility to work in. Plus, we also saw it as a job creation. So when the preschool, I believe the city opened up thousands of seats for preschool. So again, that 2,000. So they required hiring certified preschool teachers to maintain those centers. So again, we saw it as a win-win for us, a win-win for the community. So how can a politician be against that? I mean, I don't know. But as Morgan said, they even throw stones at things rather than come up with ideas to fix them.
And Fred, you touched a nerve there personally for me. You picked out a rec center that actually was in my neighborhood where I grew up, where it was like a pillar to the community, where it brought people together to, help build families and do things together. And with that not being there anymore, I just can't imagine the impact that's going to have to people that are living and growing up in that neighborhood now.
Sam, opinion?
Well, my comment on first of all, I'm honored to be here with public servants and public officials that are dedicating their time to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and also the city of Philadelphia. And the city of Philadelphia, I think, is on a cusp of really doing great things, and we all have to get behind this and work in it. And labor clearly is part of this growth and part of that, the fabric or the mosaic of going forward. It's a very important part. And also honored to be here and privileged to be with union labor leaders that, quite frankly, are making great sacrifices in order to continue this fight. I'd really like to follow up with the diversity issue because really we have a city that's very diverse, and I'm on a number of boards where we have to engage the diversity and really make it a top priority. I'm not talking about window dressing here. That's not the point. We're not having a person of color or a gender sitting at or sexual orientation sitting at the table just because of that. We have some really, really great people with substance that have to start participating and given the opportunity to participate. Our firm was listed with Klein Inspector as the number one firm as far as diversity in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. All right, and I have two women that are now going to go on the board with me. One's an African-American woman, and I'm going to tell you what, she's competitive, she's a leader, she's a great manager, she's a great attorney, great professional. She's got to come in and get a seat at the table and to be heard. Her voice has got to be heard. And we've got to do more on this. This city has to have full participation from everybody. And quite frankly, that's one of my real concerns, and we've got to get the message out, and we really have to do more about it.
Interesting, because when you were talking about Wagner, Wagner's comment was the building trades had 0 African Americans. I mean, Ryan Boyer, that was news to him.
Yeah. Big news.
But listen, at the same time, there's no denying that, that there are issues and there's commitments.
Listen, what Senator Scott Wagner does, he's just like Trump. He attacks any bad information coming out. And he'll run it to the hill because that's what people want to hear. And listen, when I look at Senator Scott Wagner, I don't know him personally, but I think he's anti-Philly. Anything in anti-Philly, he's against. You know why? Because our people go out and vote, and our people pick who we want to be here, and who's 99% of us live in this city at one time or another, or work, pay taxes, and do whatever we have to do. But that guy, he just doesn't care.
And he's a multi-millionaire, and by the way, he's probably been to Philly a handful of times in his life, so I can see why he cares so much about what the people in North Philadelphia think.
So why would you align yourself with him?
Exactly.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210, WPHT. We'll take our first commercial break on the big show. We thank all of our listeners for tuning in on a Saturday night. It's Saturday Night Live on PhillyLabor, right here on Talk Radio 1210, WPHT. Back in a moment.
I won't participate on behalf of ourselves here at Local 98 or the Philadelphia Building Trades in conversations that are purely dominated on social issues that don't affect our jobs.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT as we broadcast to you live from the Sonesta Hotel. It's a special labor leader roundtable conversation tonight from the Sonesta. Don't forget, coming up at 8 o'clock, go into the night with Dan Loney. Dan from 8 to 11 right here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
So we have an election coming up, and there's a lot of exciting races. Before we get into the races, I'd like to talk to the labor leaders about the importance of getting involved in the political process and getting our members engaged in the political process, especially when we're not talking about a major election. There's no president, there's no governor, there's no mayor. Jim Gardler, you have a 5,000 person member union across Pennsylvania. Number one, how important and what a priority is the political process, and how do you get your members engaged?
I think the biggest part in this time of the year and when you have elections like this is talking to them about the candidates who are running and assure them that we're vetting out the candidates and we're looking for candidates that actually support our issues, that we're not looking for candidates. We want, like in the case of now, the judicial elections taking place in the state of Pennsylvania, we want candidates that understand labor, working men and women values. And if they can understand our values, if something comes before them, then those people will understand why this is important to the people in the state of Pennsylvania. And when I talk to my members, I make it a point to explain to them, we're not pushing candidates based on other issues that they look at, whether it's guns or other issues. It's about how it's going to impact their livelihoods, how it's going to impact their families, not only today but in the future. So that's something we think is real important. When we put that out there, we get them involved with that process, and we point out what some of the candidates have done for us over the years to help us in the state of Pennsylvania.
Fred?
Well, first, I believe every election is an important election. I mean, to me, there's no off election. I mean, because every election, whether people understand it or not, impacts their lives. Right now, you're talking about the DA's race and control of race. Well, for my members, the control of race, control the pension fund. So that's very, very dear to us. So how a controller comes in and invests our money and makes sure the pension is fully funded, that is extremely important. The DA's race, when something happened like happened in St. Louis, where that person was gunned down and you have to make a decision to prosecute the officer or not, the district attorney will make that call. So you can't get mad after the fact. You got to get educated to the fact to make sure, as Jim said, the person you put in there are recognized as where they come from, recognize the community they represent. So, when people say, there are no important election, every election for a state rep sitting there right now, they decide on your taxes every day. So people need to get out the apathy, and get involved in civic responsibility and vote in each election.
Well, I'm going to chime in on that because, while we were sitting around waiting to go on the air, we talked about a lot of different things, and I really think we have to start getting more of our young folks and even our old folks civically engaged and educated about their responsibility as citizens. We really do. Mm-hmm. People have to understand what a collective bargaining agreement is, number one, but they also have to understand we have to be registered to vote. Your voice, don't complain. You're almost not allowed to complain if you're not registered to vote and actually participate in that sacred right to have your voice heard via a vote. The other thing people have to be very mindful of is exactly what it is that they're voting for. So we need to have people understand that the judicial races are extremely important. The Commonwealth Court is a very overlooked court, yet the Commonwealth Court deals with things like voting rights. We've had many challenges. The voting rights with ID was going to eliminate a lot of minorities' ability to vote. It was targeted for minorities. People have to understand the three different branches of government. One of the things that we should be doing on this radio program and all the listeners is to give them a civic education, not only about labor, but also about being a citizen. What are the three branches of government? The executive, whether it's the governor, whether it's the president. The legislative, the Senate, and the House. And we have a House member here today in our General Assembly for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And then we have the judiciary. The judiciary is very much under attack. Why is it under attack? Because we have a president that understands that if I can eliminate the checks and balances of the courts, I may be able to go roughshod with my policies. The courts are there to protect and make sure that one branch doesn't get overwhelming, to make sure that things are constitutional. We have to educate union members. We have to educate listeners. We have to educate the citizens of the Commonwealth and the city of Philadelphia about exactly what government's about and what their civic duty is.
Where's the disconnect?
I mean, I think it's, to your point, it's where policy meets people. And I feel like as elected officials, I've only been in 10 months, so, cut me a break. As electeds, we fail at that sometimes, connecting the policy everyday issue to, your beliefs or your everyday experience. So just take the district attorney's race. I mean, we talked about it. I mean, criminal justice reform is a big issue right now. I mean, and whether you come from it as, having experience with the criminal justice system, your family having experience, or one of the ways that we find bipartisanship is talking about the criminal justice system from a fiscal perspective. So when we're locking people up for minor offenses and it's literally costing us over $100,000 a year, that becomes a problem fiscally when we're scrapping behind the couches, increasing every tax there. We're trying to tax the air to cover our budget shortfalls, where we just look at our criminal justice system where we can right-size that, and that's where our district attorney comes in.
And it's interesting because, and we get into the criminal justice system. Obviously, that's a different show. But let me say this: obviously, that is a big part of the DA's race right now.
But I also think that Mayor Kenney recognized that issue very early
with
on.
Decriminalization.
Not only for the fiscal aspect of it, but for the social consequence of it to citizens that were having possibly their lives ruined because of some sort of minor offense.
It's like it's a rippling effect. Someone in prison, we're paying someone coming out of prison if they have a record. They're relying on social services.
You have somebody waiting for bail who can't afford bail, stuck in prison, stuck up upstate road when somebody who can afford bail get out and out walking the street, and that person's going to be stuck in jail because they're never going to be able to pay it.
Right.
So it's kind of a class thing too.
So
we're picking on people who are.
Oh, no, listen, I totally.
We have a 26% poverty rate in this city.
Kevin Boyle.
Well. Our biggest problem is when we take our members in and our older members, we're really not looking at the social part of it. We're looking at who's going to drive our agenda, right? So as labor leaders, and we can talk about civic like we're going to do for the neighborhoods and stuff like that, but most of the time we get to push our point is at the meetings and over the internet and stuff like that. But most of our guys are looking at it like, how much are we giving this guy today? You know what I mean?
And I was going to ask you that question, specifically you, because you and I have talked about this many times. But let me just say this: engaging union members. Okay, I'm an ironworker, so so listen, I was a rank and file guy, and and part of the conversation, one of the things I said was getting your members engaged. Morgan, you and I talked on the phone about that different, and there's a ton of topics like right to work and all those things, and Sam talks about them a lot. But the problem is, and I say this, I was absolutely, a lot of the young people coming in, they're focused. They get families, and you're busy, and you're trying to, pay your mortgage and get a house and all those things, and you don't realize that if you don't vote, Johnny Doc said it better than anybody I know, and he said we're getting legislated out of our ability to work, or out of our work. Guess what? That's because our members our young members aren't relating the fact that this vote right here is a vote for somebody who's either going to support you or go against you, then you're going to be sitting in the day room someday without a job, blaming the business manager up there when you didn't vote.
Well, as soon as we take an apprentice class in, the first thing they do is sign up to vote. That is the first thing before they even get paid their apprentice fund. They have to fill out the vote registration.
Absolutely.
And we push that. My biggest agenda is I have so much coming at you. Who's who? What's that? Like everybody meets up at stocks for some reason, right? So, and then if I don't know them, and if I don't engage it with them, I have a hard time giving somebody a member's money if I don't know who they are. Just because you're a D doesn't mean you get the money.
Oh, well,
you know what I mean? And that's my biggest.
And that's why I think it's important, again, for elected officials, when it's an off-election season, to come out to your members and talk through what is happening on the legislative landscape. And, when we're looking at issues like right to work, like paycheck protection, I was literally watching a show the other day, and it talked about how 10 years ago there was, some type of firm in the middle of the country that wanted to change a lot of our states into the different direction, change it from D's to R's. And, they had a somewhat of an labor movement going on, and they were successfully able to do that, which is one of the reasons why the election is important, because the Commonwealth Courts determines redistricting.
And I think you're right. I think Sam had said this earlier before the show started. We have to do a better job promoting our causes. Like the rep said, paycheck protection. You would think, no, we got to protect our. That's taking the workers' rights away. And Sam had said it. We got to do a better job at promoting what members want and what they need and what's going to protect them in the future for their retirement.
Because what Sam is saying is we're speaking their language.
Exactly.
What they did was they got deceptive. We call it, by the way, paycheck deception.
Yes, I saw
okay.
that.
Exactly.
So when you're sitting there, and Sam said it many times, the fact of the matter is, who's not going to vote for right to work? It sounds like a great thing.
Well, the biggest thing is and
when we know it's not.
When we won the White House in 2008 with Barack, that Karl Rove went to the townships and started attacking that way. That's why you have in the House up there, that's why you have 100 and some members. They have the majority. Because that's how they did it.
And they did it in preparation for 2010 for redistricting.
Absolutely. Well, to Kevin, that's where you get into, I'm only voting presidential elections. Some of my members only voting presidential elections. Well, again, it's more important than presidential elections. The state races are very, because they're the ones that set the laws in the country. Right here in Philadelphia, they passed the sick leave bill. That were preempted in Harrisburg. Okay, now, again, you're talking about 10 days for a person. Allow a person off for sick. Now, again, in the restaurant industry, they're very important. You don't want someone serving food to you have a cold, have the flu. But again, in Harrisburg, they overturned that law. And once again, so if you had the majority in Harrisburg, that law wouldn't have been overturned. But again, that's people's engagement on a local level.
And it's people's engagement in generally, and we talk about. I'm going to follow up with what Kevin's talking about.
Last word, 60
seconds.
And
people have to start understanding what gerrymandering and redistricting is. Okay, we have 1 million more Democrats. And by the way, we're listening to both sides, and especially with labor. If you're going to listen to collective bargaining issues and protect our ability to collectively bargain, it doesn't matter what party you are. But the gerrymandering issue is a big issue. And North Carolina has now had the Supreme Court designated 9-0, an anonymous decision, all right, that what their gerrymandering was racially targeted. Wisconsin has a supermajority. In the last election for the Republicans, they had 1 million more Democrats vote. What kind of democracy is that? It's not. The Democrats have lost 962 legislative seats since the last census because of gerrymandering. It's basically having the elected officials telling the population how to vote. That's how it's supposed to be.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. It's our labor leader roundtable conversation. Tonight live from the Sonesta Hotel. We'll take a commercial break. We'll continue and introduce you to our entire panel again when we come back in a moment.
I've been coming out of step with them guys, okay? And I was a treasurer of the Democratic Party. I've been a loyal Democrat my whole life. But I've told people, and it hasn't, like I told you, it just didn't resonate with this election. If you look at the last few years, I've been telling people we have to become a little bit more individual. We have to be more of our own brand. We have to do a better job at becoming a business.
Back here live on Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to our special Labor Leader Roundtable conversation tonight as we come to you from the Sonesta Hotel. Sam Pond, the founder and managing partner of Pond Lahaki, joining me along with Jay Doc, also part of the roundtable tonight. Jim Gardler, president of CWA 13,000, right? 13,000. Right. Jim, thanks for being here. Nice to have you in the room. Fred Wright, president of AFSCME DC 47. Fred, well done. I hope you enjoyed your meal at the Sonesta tonight. Thank you very much.
He'll be back tomorrow.
Kevin Boyle, here early today, and we thank you, Kevin, for coming out from Ironworkers Local 401. Thank you very much, Kevin, for getting here. Rich Lazer, the deputy mayor for labor for the city of Philadelphia, is with us as well. Rich, appreciate nice having you back on the program. And Pennsylvania State Rep Morgan Cephas is joining us in the room as well. And Morgan, it's nice to have you as part of the program as well.
So we're talking about the legislative situation, or certain legislation. We're talking about anti-worker legislation, and we just got a Senate bill that actually, I believe, passed Senate Bill 936. And so Sam's going to tell us what that means. But Sam's just going through what I think us in labor go through all the time, and that is, the way they hit you low and then hit you high, then hit you low. And so Sam is the foremost defender of injured workers' rights in Pennsylvania. So I guess the strategy is to knock them down and then just throw the legislation back on the table, which is what they did. So, Sam, do you want to give everybody kind of an understanding of 936?
Yeah, 936 came out of the blue very quickly this week, and within a couple of days, it was very unusual because there's not really any kind of public discourse about the contents of it. It passed the Senate last night, and it's going to go over the House. 936 is something that we've talked about on this show time and time again. It's simply the Senate's version of House Bill 18, which we beat in June, and also a version of House Bill 1800, which we beat in June of 2016, which was the evidence-based medicine. So a little history there, Joe, and that's kind of where we're at with Senate Bill 936. 936 will take away, if you're injured on the job, no matter who you are, whether you're a union member or you're not a union member, if you're a president of a company and you're an employee, or if you're, cranking it out as a maintenance worker, if you get injured on the job, you're not going to get any medical care. And we're talking about the PR aspect, whether it's right to work or whatever the other terms that they're using, entitlements, whatever it may be. And this is now it was an opioid bill back in the spring of this year. Now it's a drug formulary bill. And this is really a gutting all medical care when you're injured on the job. Woke up one day, went to work, got crushed by a crane. My life is over. I'm 40 years of age. I have 3 kids, a couple kids in parochial school, a kid in college. I was making $2,500. Now I'm stuck at $900 a week. I lost my annuity. I lost all my medical. I lost my life. I might lose my wife, and I may end up doing something really tragic, as we see time and time again. Injured workers in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania since 1915 gave up the sacred right to pursue damages in exchange for the scheme of workers' comp, in exchange for a weekly check that has no cost of living adjustment, and for medical. They gave up that sacred right, and now it's being taken away. Why? It's not about a drug formulary. You want to talk about a drug formulary? We try to sit down and talk about a drug formulary. You want to talk about someone owning a pharmacy? Fine. It's about the process of taking all their medical care away. That's the bottom line. And if I don't have medical care for my clients, they can't get better and get back to work. And guess what? They also know the insurance industry. I don't have a medical expert. So if I have a denied case, I don't have an expert. I don't have a case.
Because you're only getting denied based on a medical opinion of a panel doctor.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate challenge is when you come up to Harrisburg, you see who's on the side of big business versus who's on the side of the working families. And, it's not an entitlement. It's not an entitlement or anything. It's, something that you've earned over the years through your paycheck, and you have that right to, feel protected by your employer that you're employed by. And I think that's where, they get challenging with the narrative. And, we've had a couple of hearings, the Labor and Industry Committee on the House side, and, when we ask these type of tough questions to the insurance companies that are before us, sometimes we, get a little contentious with our counterparts and get a little shut down a little bit. But, it's really important that we hammer home the importance of making sure that we get this right and not to put business before working families.
It's like every other issue, whether it's labor or civil justice. Why are we always on the defense?
Yeah.
Why are we always trying to explain ourselves and defend ourselves when we have the message? We're representing worker folks that are just the middle class. Why are we always defending the rights of the middle class that are the backbone of fighting our wars, building our buildings? Why are we always trying to defend them against the people who are just worried about profits?
Well, because, Sam, I really think that we're in a capitalistic society and people value money and profit over lives. And whether you look at the education system, whether you look at the medical system, whether you look at even basic social services, we always chase the profit rather than investing in people. And you see that time and time and time again. That bill is designed to do, Sam, is deny people medical coverage who are injured on job. Period. They're trying to deny people medical coverage. So again, when you get hurt, you're either forced to give up your job or forced to go back to work. Time and time again. And we see that all the time in our industry, that people are forced to go to work when they're injured because they want you on the job.
And they're also, making an attempt to capitalize, if you can ever even think that you can, off of the opioid crisis. Yeah. When they try to point to, a chronic issue that even, number 45, I'll call them, has pointed is like a health epidemic across the country, to hide behind that issue, to take advantage of, a real epidemic that we have to address strategically through something you like to call a formula, when you essentially also created the problem that this is not the correct way. And it, again, is attack on working families.
Representative, it's such a good point because they created the problem. And it's unconscionable. It's unconscionable, almost immoral, to try to take someone's benefits and rights away to have medical treatment under the guise of the opioid epidemic that is killing and destroying families. It's unconscionable. Who does that?
I had a colleague the other day tell me, because, I'm not personally too familiar with the issue, but, just trying to get a better understanding. A colleague of mine had told me from Western Pennsylvania, I'm like, how many people in your county have, been impacted by opioids? He literally told me in one day, 48 people overdosed. And it's just the magnitude of the issue.
But here we go again. Let's get the education out, because even before this, the ProPublica reports, the New York Times reports have before the recent 60 Minutes report, clearly exposed what was going on. The insurance industry was incentivizing doctors to write cheap, generic opioids because that was the cheapest reimbursement they had.
Cheap drugs.
This was all about profit. And I don't want to go off the rails here. I really don't. I really don't want to go off the rails. But if you're going to a house of worship on Sunday or Saturday and you're actually doing this,
yeah, there's a problem.
You've got to sooner or later understand who your maker is, because we have to stop the hypocrisy.
Well, I don't see it on that end of it as a labor leader. I see it more as organizing the non-union guys to the union side because of our benefits and what we get. But I see it all the time. The guys will come in and goes, "Oh, I got hurt on that job." The guy said, "Well, either you be here or you'll be fired tomorrow." And that's our biggest, what we do as labor leaders is we give ourselves the package, the medical package to keep going. So if you do get hurt on the job or off the job, it's just not when you get hurt. It's just more of a, and listen, I understand it. Who's been more beat up than me in the steel business is, I was out for 4 months. If I didn't have benefits, my house would have been gone, everything would have been gone. And, and I understand it.
Kevin, the other thing is that the people, again, it's about education, but firing someone or reporting an injury and then, or any of those things, firing someone for reporting a work injury or making a claim or not coming back for a work injury is a civil action. It opens them up to a civil matter. people don't know about this, but they make people afraid, and why wouldn't you be? Because you're injured. First of all, you're injured. You have so much uncertainty. You're anxious. You could be depressed. You don't know where to go, and they're making you so afraid that it's even making it worse. And they're preying on an injured person.
And listen, it's driven by the insurance companies because the less people get hurt out there working for you, they get a better price.
Kevin, why aren't we addressing the maximum compensation rate, which is unconstitutional? Why aren't we addressing the fact that there's no cost of living adjustment? Why aren't we, Representative, take this back. Why aren't we looking at Act 57 where unemployment, think about this, a contractor that employs your folks, employs your members, that contractor pays a premium for workers' compensation insurance. If, in fact, the insurance company denies that case, and they've done this, they're denying the case because they know your guy who has a good work history is going to apply for unemployment. That was paid by the employer and the citizen. Guess what? After a year after I win that case, the insurance company gets an offset for the unemployment that your member received. Think about that. Basically, their responsibility, how's that word? Do they use that word a lot? Is subsidized by the citizens funding the unemployment. They don't pay the unemployment fund back. They don't pay the contractor back. They get an offset and they walk. But they're charging that contractor a certain premium for responsibility. Guess what? They didn't pay. The unemployment paid. That fund paid their responsibility. Why isn't that changed? Why isn't that being heard? That's an injustice. That's an unjust enrichment. That's a tort. Why aren't these messages being heard? You know why? Because we don't have their money. We don't have their power. But we got to start fighting back. This radio show is a platform, and I thank each and every one of you for being here. This radio show is the beginning of a platform to start getting the message out. We don't want anything unfair. We don't want anything unfair. We're very mindful of industry and creating jobs, all right? And I can get into all of that, and I can tell you, about the unfairness. We fought back on unfairness. We stopped the minimum compensation rate because it was unfair to industry. We were active in 1993 for Act 44 because there were some rogue doctors taking advantage of the system. There had to be some sort of checks and balances. We're talking about injured workers and lives. My clients are committing suicide. Let's hear their stories. Let's hear Keith Heckler's widow talk about him committing suicide and blowing his brains out in his backyard on Easter Sunday.
In our next segment, we're going to talk more about corporate greed with Jim Gardler's going through and with his members and a Goliath that you're negotiating with on a periodic basis. We're talking about, profits that are unimaginable, and yet you have to, and yet you're negotiating with, into a company that is so big that it's almost unimaginable, and they want to downsize and send jobs overseas.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. It's our labor leader roundtable conversation. Tonight we come to you from the Sonesta Hotel, 1800 Market Street. Great conversation. Settle in as we take our final break here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Back in a moment.
I believe there's room, for the national building trades, the local building trades, that have partnerships with the Trump administration as it pertains to energy, as it pertains to infrastructure, as it pertains to the undocumented worker.
Back here live on Saturday Night Live here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Thanks very much for tuning into our Labor Leader Roundtable conversation tonight as we come to you from the Sonesta Hotel here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
So we were talking with Sam Pine. We're talking about in the last segment, what goes on, and it gets to the point, with injured workers issues with corporate greed and the big insurance companies. And we're going to talk to Jim Gardler, who's the president of CWA 13,000, about a Goliath that he has to deal with on a regular basis. And we've had done a couple announcements, for you, and the numbers are astronomical. Tell us a little bit about your fight with AT&T.
Right. So we've been bargaining with AT&T now since the beginning of the year, January, February timeframe, and it's nothing new to us. They're following the same script as some of the bigger corporations that are out there, which is, they want our people to do more for less. They want to be able to offshore jobs, and they want people to continue to piggyback off what we just talked about, pay increased costs for their health care, and just gut what they currently have in place to help them when they do get hurt off the job, on their own time. And there's a company that's out there that tries to promote themselves as this company that looks out for people in this country and hiring veterans and doing a lot. Well, these are people that put their lives on the line for us every day. And I'm wondering where these veterans, what military they're from, because apparently they're not from this country, and they must be hiring them in the other countries where they're putting these people to work offshore, because our people are looking for these jobs, and they continue to look to send more and more of these call center jobs to other countries in India and Mexico. And these people, listen, they put in a tough day, and a lot of them are commission-based. They work off of sales, and they go out there, and this company doesn't want to pay them, yet they're still raking in $1 billion a month in profit.
And I was going to say that. You're talking about health care. You're talking about jobs, sending jobs overseas. Talk about the kind of profits we're talking about here from a company. We're not talking about a company that's scraping by, just they're making billions per month. The CEO, I forget what he was making, $26 million a year or something crazy.
Randall Stevenson, yeah. He's cleaning up. I mean, he's not struggling. He doesn't have to worry about health care. His
by the
family
way,
doesn't have to worry about health care.
I could care less if he's making 50 gazillion a year. Don't make it on the backs of the workers. Don't ask them to take a cut in pay, get rid of your benefits. And we've made these announcements. We've had you and Ed Mooney on the show several times when this stuff comes around. I mean, you're not asking for anything that these men and women don't deserve.
Our members that work in this industry are looking for a good middle-class living where they can raise a family, buy a house, basically have the American dream. And, corporations like this would rather take that and make their profits off the backs of some low-wage, low-skilled individual from another country.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible. By the way, who built the company? In other words, the members and the workers had a little bit to do with the success of AT&T. Am I correct?
They build it, they continue to upgrade it, and it continues to evolve on the backs of the men and women that come to work every day that are members of the CWA, the IBEW, the laborers that are out there to help build the infrastructure and the network. I mean, there's countless number of unions that are impacted by what they try to do by sending this work to different countries, different individuals, and we try to fight it, and we try to make sure that that work stays here for our members. And we get a lot of assistance not only from the local politicians, but from the state and the federal politicians. And the representatives have all been sending letters in supporting us on behalf of this fight with AT&T, notifying the CEO of AT&T and putting him on notice that enough's enough. Let's get this contract done.
Lazer, how tough's the fight?
It is a tough fight, and I think on the whole conversation, what Jim said, what Sam said, with Fred, and I think it's like we're going backwards. I mean, we fought for everything. Working people over the history of this country have fought for everything we have, for retirement, for health care, for good wages, and it's insane that now we have folks that want to take it away and give our folks less. People who are out there every day trying to raise a family, send their kids to school, bring food on the table, make sure everybody's healthy, and we're taking these things away that people fought every day for, and it's a disgrace. It's a shame.
It's like, rebounding from the recession. So you have Wall Street and big business that have rebounded, but they're not interested in seeing the workers rebound. And I think that's the challenge. So not only are we writing letters, but it is a big fight, but we are also on picket lines to where we have to hold these companies accountable and also look into our coffers. Do they have any contracts with the city of Philadelphia, any contracts with the state of Pennsylvania, and really hold their feet to the fire? I mean, Richie, we were down at, the airport fighting that fight, holding their feet to the fire to make sure they're doing right by their workers.
And the other part, the good point to that is the Aloft Hotel over on Broad Street. Ton of tax breaks, supposed to create over 100 and something jobs. Didn't create that many jobs. We got the community out there with Unite Here out there protesting because they're getting all these tax breaks and they're not following through. The city, we looked into it. We're not going to invest our pension money into the company that owns that hotel anymore, because if they're not going to follow up and they're getting all these tax breaks and they're not going to follow up to the agreement they made with the state and the city, then why should we put pension dollars into something like that?
And that's why elections matter, because when you have a mayor in the office that is a friend of labor, understands labor, has a family that has gone through labor, these are the type of actions that are taken.
Fred Wright, president of AFSCME DC 47, your thought?
Well, once again, it's profit over people, and we have to get out the mentality of taking away from the middle class, the working class, and idolize the profiteer of their country. I mean, that's why Donald Trump in the White House, because you had a president who ran that he was smarter than everybody, he was a deal maker, and what this guy was known for when he built a land in the city, the building trade, he was paying people 80 cents on a dollar. He rooked everybody down there, and he didn't pay his tax. He bragged about he didn't pay his taxes. And
didn't even pay the contract.
Didn't pay the contract.
And people, oh, he's smart. He was a deal maker. No, he wasn't a deal maker. I mean, to me, he was almost a crook. He was dishonest. But we idolize that.
Yeah, but he convinces folks, like you said, that he's
he told people what they wanted to hear.
Stopping them.
But, at some point in time, people have to take a stand and do what's right. And this comes from, the leadership. When I'm talking the leadership, not only from the union leader, but also from our political leaders, like the mayor or the governor, who really sets the stage. I mean, right now, my union have a negotiation with the city of Philadelphia for a contract for the white-collar work with the city of Philadelphia and the employees of the first district. Part of that negotiation was the pension plan. Now this stuff was, negotiated years ago. Our people putting their money time and time again, but, this is a subject of bargaining. As Sam said, we have collective bargaining, so we can sit down at the table and collectively bargain over this stuff. But why should we have to defend that? Why should we have to defend that? I mean, that's something that should be a right to ours that we should be entitled to.
Right.
So, I mean, we have to really break this mold about, taking what people fought hard for, fought years ago, sacrificed for. People sacrificed years ago, gave concessions because they wanted a benefit in another area.
Yep.
Now we hear, defending that benefit, and that's not right.
Yeah, and the rep knows this better than anybody here. There's folks up in Harrisburg now that want to take the bargaining over pension out of the collective bargaining and have the state make the decision. And how's that fair to the worker?
Absolutely, Kevin.
Well, yeah, and I don't see it as big as these guys do because with AT&T, we don't really deal with that part of it. But to me, I think big business is definitely, they throw all their money into PR because once you start getting a higher standard, the first thing they do is go, look what they're making. That's why this company is going down, down, down. We have to offset their costs. We got to send the jobs overseas. Yeah. That's what they say all the time. And they get their message out there because, listen, they do have a lot of things. They do have a lot of money going toward that because guess what? 99% of these guys, they have stockholders and they want their dividends.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't see that part of it. But that's what as a labor leader, I know it's part of it. But to me, that's what it is.
But also, though, the politicians, we said earlier, these deceptive terms like right to work and paycheck protection. I mean, who in their right mind? We're working, we heard Donald Trump say it. I like right to work. I mean, I bet you 99.999 go for another hour. Don't know what it is. It's the right to work. We call it the right to work for less, right, Sam?
What's the last time he paid a bill?
Right,
exactly. He doesn't pay a bill. He negotiates it down.
Right.
He never negotiates up. He's always going down.
I wonder how many times Jim Gardler's and Ed Mooney's members were just working during the day, not bothering anybody, but working hard, going out to risk their lives in many cases, and all of a sudden went to a union meeting and said, you know what, let's just pick it to get the CEO's $24 million paycheck, his annual. Let's get that knocked in half. Probably never. They're not asking him to take his $25 million a year down.
Oh, we try it on a regular basis at shareholder meetings. The problem is they have so much control over the stock, the voting stock at these meetings, that you can't even come close to touching the money that they not only pay themselves, but what they pay the board of directors. So they take care of them.
But my point is, your members are asking for health and retirement and a fair living wage. Okay. I mean, it's un-American to think somebody be making $25 million a year and asking you to get rid of your health care.
But if I can add this again, it's not just about organized labor, union labor. I mean, this is about the working class. Mm-hmm. Whether you're in the union or not union, if the working class that we're trying to protect everyone's standard of living. So everyone needs a decent health plan, a decent paying job, sometimes job security. Because again, if you have a community that you have 26 poverty rate, you have violence in the street, you have crime, You have people being uneducated. You have you're gonna pay on the back end with incarceration. So what we're trying to do is uphold the social standard of this country. And why we're under attack every day, I don't know. But people really need to educate themselves to try to uplift themselves and uplift their communities.
And I also think this one last point, that we have to stop making it's the moral issue for you to do this right by your workers. No, your workers will come to work healthier. They'll come to work happy, be more productive, which makes you more productive, which makes your product better. That is the reason why.
That's just good business.
It's good business.
That's just good business.
It's not a moral argument.
We talk about that in our office yesterday. I had a nutritionist come in, and I talked, not that I'm qualified, but I talked about mindfulness. We had a nutritionist to come in for 2 hours. We want to have our people engaged. We feel that's our obligation. But it also is going to help your bottom line. Mm-hmm. It's going to help the bottom line of everybody if we have a strong middle class.
But Sam, people don't believe in that no more. Henry Ford, who wasn't a great trade unionist by no means, but he believes that every person that worked in his plant should have the ability to buy a Ford product. Mm-hmm. Somewhere along the line, when we talked about the global economy, we didn't care about the average person anymore buying a car or buying a house. We cared about profits, okay, and about the CEO making millions, obscene money instead of really helping his workers and helping the community at large.
Exactly.
We lost our way.
A real CEO, a real leader, is a servant. They're a servant. If everybody here is a leader, and we're servants. The bottom line is, if you're really a good leader, you're serving your flock.
Yes,
that's the bottom line. Everything else will take care of itself.
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Our first labor leader roundtable conversation tonight at the Sonesta Hotel. What a great night it was, with some great opinions and some great thoughts and some great conversation from everyone. I want to go around the horn. I said in the commercial break that everybody was going to get about 35 seconds. Everybody's going to get about 10 because we're up against the clock, 10 to 15 seconds. But let's start there. Jim, let me start with you. We'll go around the horn, give everybody a closing thought before we say goodnight.
Real quickly, thank you for having me on the show. And I'd like to extend the condolences of Local 13,000 and personally myself out to Pat Biancoli and his family. But most importantly, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be asked to get out there, go to the polls, and vote. Vote to make some changes. Vote to make sure that we people don't understand our issues.
Kevin?
Once again, I want to thank you for letting me come here. I know I just got in from Vegas, but thank you anyway. And I just want to give a shout out to our members who donated, or are going to donate $5,000 to the Hurricane Relief Fund through our international, which will go strictly to the people from Houston, Miami, and Puerto Rico.
Fred?
Again, thank you for having me. I enjoyed being here. I'm having a discussion with my fellow labor leaders and elected officials. I'd just like to, shout out to the members of AFSCME District 47, all the members of AFSCME District 47, and, hopefully, wishing that we get a contract from the mayor pretty soon.
That's why we really arranged it.
Let's go to Deputy.
Well, what do you say, Rich?
Labor City of Philadelphia, Rich Lazer. Rich,
thank you.
Thoughts.
Thank you again for having me on the show. I always look forward to coming back. I continue to be on the show, and I think it's a great show. I just want to give a big shout out to the City of Philadelphia and PIDC, specifically the Commerce Department, Harold Epps and John Grady, for putting a great proposal together for Amazon to send out there. As everybody knows, 50,000 jobs with a $100,000 average salary and $5 billion in capital improvements and construction. I think it's a big thing for the city. If we can pull that in, it would be amazing. And I just want a big shout out again to the city and to PIDC on that.
State Rep Morgan Cephas.
Don't forget the hashtag Philly Delivers.
Hashtag Philly Delivers.
I just want to thank you guys for having me on. I'm been in 10 months, 192nd, represent neighborhoods over in West Philadelphia.
But you're not a rookie in politics.
No, I'm not. Got some years behind me. But I just want to thank you for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to be a voice and hear the voices of labor. And I feel like that is extremely critical right now because we are in some trying times, but we also have some opportunities to grow as a city. We have a lot of great things coming to Philadelphia as well as the Commonwealth. We just need to make sure we're building those pipelines and making sure that we do right by labor and get it right.
Last word tonight, Sam Pond.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think this was a wonderful show. It's the first of many to come, and we're going to educate. We're going to advocate. And we're going to make sure that we deliver on the promise of labor And also, I want to thank each and every one of you for your service, not only as being labor leaders, but also public servants. And looking forward to more shows. Thank you and good night.
All right, good stuff from all participating tonight at the Labor Leader Roundtable conversation here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Stay tuned for the Dan Loney Show. He's up at the top of the hour. On behalf of J-Doc, on behalf of Sam Pond, on behalf of everyone in the building tonight for our roundtable, I'm Joe Krause. I'll see you next time.
This program is a paid commercial announcement and in no way represents the views of WPHT or its management.